Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back, everybody. Another week of the Pick and Go podcast, ready to kick off. I'm Patrick Jones, back refreshed from a nice little jaunt down to Queenstown. Thanks to the boys for holding up the ship in my absence. Very much enjoy it. I wasn't really referring to you there, Paul, sorry. But as you can already tell, that's Paul Moati to my right. Paul, thanks for joining us again. How was the Ryder Cup?
Wasn't the best. Yeah. We lost.
My condolences.
Thank you.
Carl Tiley, once again, thanks very much for joining the show.
No worries. The gift that keeps on giving, if you will. Just can't get rid of me.
Your words.
Full house here today. It's good.
And very pleased to welcome back once again, joining us from across the Tasman, fittingly, Matthew Fisk. How are you, Fisky?
Oh, I can hardly hear. They've got all this money. I'm rolling around in this cash that I earned last week. I just can't put a foot wrong in this tournament.
And thank you for joining the show, Fisky. We'll talk to you again next week.
Well, wait for my tip. The punters are desperate for them. I'm just dead set seeing them like watermelons at the moment.
I've just had a picture in my mind of Demi Moore rolling around in a bed of cash, but with Fisky's face superimposed.
I can't wait to go to bed with that image in my head tonight.
Gonna have to give the podcast the explicit tag this week, clearly.
I like it.
I'm glad to hear one of us had a good week last week because, it was a pretty rough week all round in the tipping comp. We'll get to that later. But I've got down here on the run sheet, the first question I want to ask all of you boys is what your biggest takeaways from week 2 or the opening 2 weeks of the competition have been. And Fisky, seeing as it seems like your biggest takeaway has been a big bank deposit, what are your thoughts been on the first couple of weeks so far?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to share anything that everyone doesn't know by now, but the golf is probably bigger than last year, I'd say. These Aussie sides just can't go with the Kiwi ones. They can go for a little bit, but over a 5-week tournament with 1 week backup, it's just going to get bigger and bigger, that golf. I just can't see how they compete. And the one thing that strikes me, the difference, it's not attitude. It's just the actual guile and the strategy and attack. Kiwis can score, and they do often do that. Aussie sides play a real structured game, field position, work down into the opposition and 20 and try and score a pretty conventional kind of try. It's just not going to cut it at this level. You need to be attacking from all parts of the field, and the Aussie teams just don't do that.
It has been, I think, certainly as big as we expected, if not bigger. Paul, do you think, obviously the Aussie teams haven't played against the Kiwi teams for the better part of a year and a half now with the COVID lockdowns and everything. Do you think that's contributed to this golf, just the lack of experience playing against those top teams where you gain experience and build better game plans? Is that a big part of this gap we're seeing?
Yeah, I think if you have regular competition against quality opposition, then you will get better. And the opposite of that, if you're playing mediocre opposition, you're probably only going to produce mediocre results. And I think that's just been amplified by the fact that when the Australian teams have played the New Zealand teams, they have looked terrible. Almost every single game so far, the Aussie teams just have been, with one or two minor exceptions, they have just been poor, but really poor. It's almost like the haves and the have-nots, and the haves all live on this side of the Tasman, and the have-nots all live on the other side.
Yeah, could we clip that out without context and get that up on social? Yeah, no, it's How about you, Carl? What was your sort of biggest note from the last 5 games, or what you've seen so far?
Richie Mo'unga is really, really good at rugby. He was incredible on Saturday night.
Yeah,
that's Saturday night.
Yeah.
I saw, I don't know who it was, but one of our New Zealand greats, first fives, Grant Foxy, was it? Yeah, has called him the best we've ever had.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
Hey, this is my turn to talk, not yours. Sit down.
I think he is.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I was actually blown away by how the Reds are supposed to be. Well, they are the Australian champs.
Are we revoking that title after these 2 weeks?
I don't know. This was supposed to be the match of the round, the game everyone was looking forward to, the yardstick, if you will. And the golf there's a 60-point golf or 40, whatever it was.
I think it could have been 60, right? If they wanted it to be.
It was the Crusaders. I don't know. Are the Crusaders that good, or is the gap that big?
Yeah, that's the question. I think the answer to are the Crusaders that good is always yes, right? No matter what you're talking about. But they're going to put. That's why I think it was so shocking what they did against the Brumbies the week before. You expect them to be such a professional, organised outfit that even after winning a big final the week before, we all expected to come out guns blazing and put a hurting on a Brumbies side when you see what they did to the Reds.
It makes it confusing. Like you think, maybe the Brumbies played really well, but then the Chiefs gave it to the Brumbies
a week later,
and the Chiefs played really well. Like. Did the Brumbies just get up for one, or the Crusaders play terrible? It's
very hard
to follow.
Yeah, I think motivation is going to be a key factor as we sort of get later into the season, and obviously, pretty much all the Australian teams' chances of making the finals have gone up in flames, if not completely extinguished. But that sort of was what I wanted to touch on here. Now, Fisky, as the Reds, they were the champs and sort of flying the flag for Australia, but they've probably been the most disappointing so far out of any of the Australian sides. Do you think that's just a come down from winning the Super Rugby Australia final in such sort of exhilarating fashion, and that's what they had all their chips in the basket for that final, and they're not so worried about this? They're just sort of taking the foot off the gas now?
No, I think they've been putting in. You could accuse them of round one, like they did take a weak side to Dunedin, and they'd won a tournament, less than a week before, so which meant a lot to them. So I could accuse them of that week one, but week two, playing in front of a full house, they were putting in. They were just off the pace, and it was a stronger side. It was a far stronger side than their week one team, and I thought it'd be reasonably competitive. I thought Crusaders would edge away, nowhere near the effort they did. But Crusaders can do that, and the All Blacks do that from time to time as well. They just pick a game, and when they're on top, they can just boot away, and that's the difference. They can win the tight ones, but when they're clearly ahead, they can just shoot away at the drop of a hat.
I think the biggest thing for me about watching a lot of that Reds game was just the defense. It seemed like the Crusaders, they decide to score a try almost, and then they just had no answers. Moanga was obviously a big catalyst for that, but it was, you expect a big part of their success in Super Rugby Australia was they were probably the most well-organised, gritty defensive team when they really needed to be. You saw in those comebacks against the Brumbies, but just had no answer, right? It was,
I think, though, that to Carl's point, like Moanga, some of the tries were absolutely amazing. The handling and the shape of the attack.
He's so fast off the mark.
Yeah, and some of the handling in the lead up to some of the tries was amazing. So, it was just a game of football. They had him on the canvas and they rubbed their nose in it. I thought it was really good to watch.
Yeah, well, it was certainly a fun watch. So plenty of highlights on display there. But as much as we've been singing the praises of the Crusaders so far, they're not top of the table for once. First time since probably Razor took charge down there. They haven't been sitting on top of a ladder. It's actually the Blues and the Hurricanes both on 10 points. The Blues currently top courtesy of points difference ahead of the Canes. So those two teams still, given the nature of this competition, they still have their destiny in their own hands. So we say they've obviously played the weakest schedule so far, both having played the Rebels and the Waratahs. Much tougher tests to come for both of them. But if they do win out and get 5 points from each game, they will be in the final. Paul, you know what I'm going to ask here, and I know that's why you're laughing. Will the final be in Wellington or Auckland?
No, it won't. No, it's going to be in Christchurch.
Okay.
Yes. Of course it's going to be in Christchurch. Sure, the Blues and the Canes taking maximum points from their first two games, but as you say, they've had the easiest schedule so far. The Crusaders have played, you could arguably say, the two toughest teams on the Australian side of things, and now they've got quite an easy run in. So it wouldn't surprise me to see either of the Blues or Canes drop a game, but before we're out of this. But I see the Crusaders picking up 15 points from their last 3 games.
They got they're 32-point favourites this week. They got the Force in Canterbury a week later, so they'll be similar, if not a bit higher handicap. And then they're away to the Rebels, and I say away in inverted commas because that might be in Sydney, it might be New Zealand, because I don't think it'll be Melbourne. So, and they'll be probably 25, 30-point favourites there. So I think you're right, mate. I think you can lock 15 points in right now.
Yeah, and I think the Canes may struggle against the Brumbies over
That's
there.
the big one, right?
That's the bit they've always found it tough to win over in Canberra. So I'm not saying they're going to get 5 points or 4 points, but I think they'll struggle there. And then, of course, they've got the Reds back here to finish off the comp. The Blues, on the other hand, they've got to travel to Queensland next week.
Yeah, they
on the
go
Reds.
to Suncorp next Friday night, and then
the Force back here. They've got a slightly easier finish to the comp, I think. So they may be able to get the 15 points. They'll be hoping just to pick up 3 wins. But I certainly see maximum points for the Crusaders in their last 3 games.
Yeah, sure. You must have been a bit upset, though, on Friday night, Carl. See, the Highlanders obviously got out to a big lead there, 3 tries in the first 36 minutes before the Force had dotted down, and then so that looked like a chance to secure a bonus point away from home. And after the hot start to the season they'd had against the Reds, really laying down that marker, we know that they've particularly focused on this competition. Must have been a shame to see that slip, or was that just more a testament to the Force and their gritty nature to be able to drag themselves back into it?
Which we talked about it last week, and I tried to defend it. The flight to Perth, and that could have been a factor. The travel there, disappointing not to see them go on with it. But look, they got the job done. They got the win. They're on 9 points. They're in
Plus the late start.
later.
Yeah.
Very late for them.
I mean, what it kicked off at our time at
9:45.
Yeah.
So I suppose they haven't played many games in that. It wasn't as tough as the Chiefs having a kick off at midnight their time the week before.
No.
But yeah, it's still a 6-day or 7-day turnaround.
I'll be very, very interested to see how they go this week. Obviously, they should win pretty easily, but coming back from Perth back to Queenstown and now probably back to Sydney.
Yeah, it's a tough slog.
I'm sure they lose another day there and travel, and it's not ideal.
Just a messed up preparation as well, right? Yeah, it's not what you want when you have to really be absolutely firing on all cylinders to get these bonus points and keep going to keep pace at what is a breakneck speed.
Shout out to the Rebels. Thanks for staying in the country, clowns. Absolute clowns.
Yeah. It's been a tough few weeks for the Rebels between conceding 50 to the Blues and then everything going on in Melbourne. So, yeah, no.
Why didn't they play? I don't get it.
Why didn't they stay here?
Yeah,
exactly.
Fisky, you live in Australia. You ask them.
Yeah, jeez.
Get down to Concord Oval with a camcorder on Saturday morning and do a bit of media for us.
Do we know where, if the game's in Sydney, where it will be played? We're obviously recording this on a Thursday afternoon, and the decision hasn't been made yet.
I don't know.
I'd say Brookvale Oval, somewhere like that.
I guess it'll just depend what.
Or Cogra or Leichhardt. Could even be Leichhardt.
Oh yeah, good. Fisky will be there.
Yeah.
In which case I'll set off a bomb alarm. And
Sure.
Whoa.
The thoughts of one Matthew Fisker not shared or indeed endorsed.
I'm only joking. I'd never damage Leichhardt Oval. Never happen.
No.
Brookvale maybe, but not Leichhardt.
You mean a Gary Owen?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. If they're travelling back from Perth and back to Australia, it's not the best lead up, and the Rebels pretty average side, but they're good enough to score 20 odd points last week against the Canes. So who knows?
I think they should still win, but there's just be that bonus point, which is the huge.
That's the bare minimum, right? You need the bonus. I think. I haven't put this down, but throwing out to you boys, do you reckon you're going to need at least 24 points on the board to make the final? Surely at least 2 teams are going 4 out of 5 bonus points wise.
I think so.
Yeah.
Like we've pretty much penciled in the Crusaders there for one of them, right?
Yep.
I think the Blues should be able to get 2 out of 3 bonus points from their last 3 games.
You'd think at least, yeah. It all points towards a Blues Crusaders final in Christchurch.
Jumping the gun early.
There you go. Just,
That'll be about as competitive as some of the Waratahs games. So
wow.
Anyone but the Crusaders
Yeah.
again. Come on, I've had enough.
Noah Lolasea should just kick that field goal. But how good would
I know.
it'd be such a fun 4 weeks talking about all the other teams and just leave the Crusaders to it. But,
And it's not because everyone hates you.
It is.
It is, yeah.
Well, no,
Dislike the Crusaders very much.
Boa doesn't dislike them.
Oh, I don't. It's not. They're a very well-run organisation. A lot of great players, but about 3 of them actually grew up in the region that they're representing. So that's my whole beef with the situation.
Okay.
No comment down here.
Yeah.
Holland is running a very similar
Wow.
vibe.
I heard what you had to say about them on the podcast last week. I think you've covered your territory.
What did I say last week?
Just how you would have made some exchanges in exchange for the penalty, the conversion to go over at the end of the.
Oh, my kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out my kids.
Hope they're watching on YouTube. Back on track though, because as this podcast is want to do, we seem to have gone the same way as the Highlanders travel plans over the last 4 or 5 days. Next point, we might as well move on to round 3 of Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. We've got 5 more games coming at us.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, 4 and that's going to happen. That it'll just, I imagine it'll spend. So that's just a matter of unless. Yeah, I'd be pretty shocked if the Rebels, they don't get their game on, just the way the competition, they can't afford to have it cancelled or anything. So, but
should be a 5-point default to the Highlanders for the Rebels' fault for doing this. Should have just stayed here.
We'll let you draft a letter to the Sanzar committee after this if you want. But yeah, once again, obviously all the New Zealand teams pretty short favourites. Chiefs $1.36 are the biggest price of the lot. Blues $1.18. Crusaders, you cannot get a bet on head to head. You can get them $1.01 in the match result market. May hear more of that from the man to my right later on. But the first game of the week is up in Hawke's Bay. You got the Hurricanes hosting the Western Force on Friday at 7:05. Obviously, the big news ahead of this game is the return of one Artie Severe, who's been named on the bench.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I. My thoughts on the matter to start with. Paul,
And the return of Peter Umaga Jensen.
how good! Oh, great to see Wainui get a win over North last week.
He played quite a good game for Wainui.
Good use of his talents.
Indeed. Yeah.
I'm sure the Hurricanes could have used him to make that bonus point a bit safer, but less said about that. Anyway, Paul, you're one of our other resident Hurricanes fans. Is this return of Artie made you feel better about the Canes' chances going forward in Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, or just another paper over the cracks?
I do feel better, certainly about the Canes' chances, and also that Artie's back playing rugby. He's a huge part of that team. I know they rely on Geordie a hell of a lot, and Geordie does stand up, but Artie is just an unbelievable force in that pack, and I think he sort of puts the rest of the team on his shoulder and carries him for a certain extent. So great to see him back, and I hope that he gets a good portion of game time off the bench as well.
Do you think that'll be determined by the score?
If it's a wee bit closer, he'll come on a wee bit earlier than they would have.
I would have said the other way around. Depending, I don't know. It depends how much they want to protect him in his first game back.
He's got to be right.
If he's good to go, he's good to go.
Because my whole thing is, what if Devon Flanders rolls his ankle in the third minute?
True.
And he has to get, if he's
very true.
Yeah, and they always say about this sort of thing, it's actually the going through training for the full week and getting your body back into condition that is the real issue. So
wouldn't know anything about that. So
can't
comment.
Yeah, I'm very much speak. This is a third party recount because I played 12 minutes in my last rugby game and was ready to be Guernsied off the field. So yeah, not in a good way.
I think the Force are a chance there, getting 21 and a half. I really like the look of the Force. They're the sort of side that instead of trying to win, they try to stop you from winning, if that makes sense. They do a lot of negative things, and it can get under the skin of an opposition and might put the Canes off their game plan slightly. I don't think they can win, but I certainly think them getting 21 and a half points, 3 converted tries, is certainly worth a look.
Yeah, I'd have to agree there. The Canes certainly a team this season in particular that can be frustrated as well. I think we'd have to say they haven't been running in the points as freely as we've seen them in previous seasons. Fisky, your best bet last week, I believe, was taking the Canes on it at the start. Is this 20+ point line catching your eye as well for the Force?
No, it's interesting. Yeah, the Canes have won 13+ both matches, but they haven't covered either start. I think this is a game they will cover. So this is up my sleeve later on in the podcast for my value players. So being at Napier, up in the Hawke's Bay, I think they have a big crowd there. A lot of energy. It's a heck of a trip for the Force to make. Not only getting over from Perth, but then finding their way to Napier. They've spent their whole week in transit. But I think I love exactly what Paul said about the Force being a niggly side that try and frustrate you. They don't have a lot of points in them. Their defence is not bad, but on opposition territory, I don't think those tactics work. I think they'll get blown off the park. I really do. I think they're a perfect home team, one that tries to dictate the pace of the game and hang in there. You see the halves, Argentinian halves, that's kind of their style. So, and an experienced outside back line and some hardened forwards, but there's no brilliant fast players like in the vein of Artie Sevilla or Geordie Barrett or Lamapi, who's heading offshore next year. So I think there's some brilliant players for the Canes, and I think they'll rub their noses in it this week.
Do we know? Does anyone know when the last game was played at McLean Park?
They had a couple of I think they played the Sunwolves there just before the lockdown in 2020. That would have been the last hurricane.
Do we still have concerns over the surface? There's a little bit of rain about tomorrow afternoon.
Weather's fine tomorrow. It's going to be pretty wet in Auckland on Saturday, but Napier for Friday will be fine.
Hawke's Bay certainly had no problems running up a few big scores on McLean Park during the Mitre 10 Cup as well. So
I'd just like to clarify, Fisky, that the Met service. So there's a brief shower or two late in the afternoon tomorrow. In the Hawke's Bay.
I've done my due diligence. I'm comfortable with the weather.
Do we want to have a kebab bet on whether or not it rains in Napier? I've got some contacts up there.
How many mil of rain do we need to be considered rain?
If they cover, that's all I'll care about. I think they will.
I can tell, there's a very, very lack of interest in this conversation from one end of the headphones. So I'll move on to the second game of the round before we make any bets, and that is in Wollongong on Saturday afternoon, Australian time. We've got the Waratahs hosting the Crusaders, and I've just got one question for you blokes. Feel free to field this in any order you want. How many blokes would the Crusaders have to have sent off in the first 5 minutes for you to make the Waratahs favourites here?
14.
Cody Taylor against 15.
No, what if it's Moanga, the one that's left on the field? It's $1.85 the pair.
Yeah.
I reckon the Crusaders could win it with 12, but that's just me. If they got the pack intact, it shouldn't be. Although I did watch the Waratahs score 48 on the Hurricanes.
The Waratahs have been they got 21 last week.
Yeah, I think that was close for the first
They've
half.
got an uncanny knack of scoring tries. They just can't defend tries.
So they've covered both their starts. So unlike the Canes, they've covered both games.
Different kettle of fish this week.
They have conceded 48 and 64 against teams who are very much not the Crusaders, and they have to play a team that's
a worry.
Is the Crusaders
that is a worry.
on an afternoon? I don't know. You'll probably be more familiar with the surroundings at Wynn Stadium, Fisky. Is that usually a good hard fast track?
Beautiful ground. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So, that won't be an issue. Like, if Crusaders want to run up a score, we don't know what side they're going to put out there. But, I think they could pretty much win by whatever they want. It's do they have an eye on next week or the week after? Who knows?
Yeah, the Chiefs did put 50 on the Waratahs down in the Gong last year, I think the last game before the competition came to a grinding halt. So, certainly capable of conceding a big score. But I don't think we need to do too much in-depth analysis on this game. Right.
No. The 32.5, not enough.
I'll be mentioning that again very, very shortly.
Right.
Yeah. That's probably a bit far out for your value bet of the week though. So shame we went to. Yeah.
I was looking at the number in the alternate point start, the one at the very bottom of the page. Minus 57.5.
How's taking all the minuses against the Waratahs gone for us so far this season, Carl? But I'll be
good.
The Crusaders.
But you're going again.
Yeah, I'm very much a different kettle of fish. So I'll be all over these on about 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, a couple of beers after rugby, and watch them drop 80. Hopefully, it should be fun. I think probably maybe the most interesting game of the round. Depends how you feel about the Reds, but as the next game in Eden Park, Brumbies obviously came out of the gates with a hiss and a roar against the Crusaders, really took them to the sword, but then were pretty disappointing for mine against the Chiefs. I think the plus was a pretty popular bet around these parts last week, from what I recall. Blues, I'm not going to attempt to analyse the Blues. I've given up on that long ago, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. Do we expect to see more of a fight from the Brumbies this week, or is this another one where they've just sort of done their dash and the New Zealand team will be too good?
This is probably the game where we see how good the Blues are, I would suggest. I can't see the Brumbies rolling over again like they did the Chiefs last week.
Their scrum was a real worry. The Waratahs, they got shoved off the ball a number of times, and that's going to be hard to fix in a week, especially against a pretty notable scrummaging.
Three All Black props and that Blues outfit.
Yeah, they'll be licking their lips this week. Now, I know it's hard to get dominated like that 2 weeks in a row, so I'm sure Brumbies will find something, but gee whiz, that's what they would have spent most of their week on, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a few issues to iron out, but I think, getting parity, because that's what the game's built around, right? Is that set piece, it's the rolling ball and the scrum and everything. So haven't actually seen a Brumbies team at time of recording, but I'm sure...
We've got the Blues team though, haven't we?
Yeah, it's reasonably close to full strength. Patrick Tuipulotu back on the bench, which is
he makes a big difference.
He's huge, yeah. He's one of the most underrated players going around, I reckon. Huge to have him back, especially if they are... Net want similar sort of things to Artie if they're needing a couple of tries laid on, or just even that calming influence. Him come on and pull rank, and he really leads that forward pack around the park. They looked a bit, obviously they've been good the last couple of weeks, but towards the end of Super Rugby Aotearoa, they looked a bit headless without him guiding them around. So
what's the loose forward trio looking like?
It's Tom Robinson, H. Satutu, and Dalton Papali'i.
That's a significant slab of Blues.
They go pretty well, bringing a Kiri Ioane off the bench too late in the piece into a tired defence.
That's the perfect role for him as well. That impact player, just sort of come in and cause a bit of havoc, running at some tired blokes. Yeah, and Jacobson and co did a pretty big number on that Brumbies.
How good we didn't even mention that. How good was Jacobson last week?
He is so good. Man. He's been so good all year, right?
He was in everything. Everything.
I know he's not been playing six, but if you're picking an All Black team today, is he the 6 and Artie the 8? With Kane obviously is out injured, but he's got to be in the conversation for one of those starting loose forwards.
We are very blessed here in New Zealand with loose forwards,
lots and lots of them,
and halves and our outside backs, and
I mean,
quite a few positions.
That's I've been big on Hoskins Tutu for a while. How about you as a
Kazuki Kamino? Can we claim him yet?
I think that might be a bit out of possibility. I'm sure they'll do the best they can. But, I don't think there's any other things you're keeping an eye on at Eden Park on Saturday night before we
just... I think the Brumbies are a decent side. There's still one thing we probably haven't acknowledged enough is they're still under strength, particularly at the back of the scrum. So I don't think they get any trips flown in. This trip was always going to be under strength. So, they're going to have to dig deep and maybe play a different style, try and challenge the outside backs of the Blues maybe and get on the scoreboard, get the scoreboard ticking over like they did against the Crusaders. So, if they keep it tight, they'll get monstered. So they need to really mix it up this week. The pressure's on.
Do we see the tactics change from the Australian teams this week? Like they
might have to.
You'd think they're essentially all out of it, but if they want any chance of making the final, they're going to have to score some points and just throw caution to the wind, right? So either win by 20 or lose by 40.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I don't know. Like, it's not that they're all going to have a meeting together and say, all right, we all need to go out there.
No,
and
but
the
you
ball.
might
I
be a couple of
saying,
teams that decide the Force are obviously in the best position so far. Brumbies not far behind, but they're going to have to. I don't know if the Brumbies have the personnel to really play that game. That's not. They've been, and I don't think that blood and thunder style really. That's exactly what the Blues want, right? They've got this big hulking forward pack, 3 All Black props that loose forward trio we just talked about. They want to just turn it into a battle, and they're going to have the athletes and the physicality to outmuscle you every day of the week, which is sort of how the Brumbies operate against those maybe those Australian teams that don't quite have. They've got the Valentinis, and like the guys. So
I agree. It's a good matchup for the Blues. It really is. It's the kind of team they want to play against.
I think we saw a similar thing, but just to a lesser extent against the Rebels, who also maybe don't have the best X factor and try and sort of turn games into arm wrestle, and that just obviously did not work at all a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah.
So in this tournament so far, the New Zealand sides have hit 20 points every match, and there's only been 3 matches they haven't hit 30. So, without stating the obvious, the Aussie team's got to be scoring more points. You're not going to keep a New Zealand side under 25 realistically. You're just not going to. So, but to do that, you've got to be scoring 3 or 4 tries a match, and that's probably, I think Carl's right, they've got to change their tactics.
Yeah, especially when you look at that back three, the Blues have now, right? It's Bryce Heem, AJ Lamb on the wings, and Zahn Sullivan. Like, we've seen.
How good has he been going?
Zahn Sullivan?
Yeah.
Oh, he's great. He was amazing for Auckland in the Mitre Cup last year, and I was a bit surprised we didn't see more of him in Super Rugby Aotearoa, but sort of CMA Unleashed has been. But especially, I think Lamb in particular, he has been taking a bit advantage of a bit defensively. That's, I think, if there's any way you're going to attack this Blues team, it's Rico Ioane at centre, and then maybe the 2 wingers defensively. You need to get the ball out into those wide channels, and they have the guys to do that. Like, who's the bloke? Rissi tipped him out to Tom Banks. He had a great game against the Crusaders the week before, so they do have the. It's just whether or not they think that's worth it against the Blues. So, yeah, lot we'll find out on Saturday night, I suppose. But yeah.
I know I'm going off on a wee bit of a tangent.
It doesn't sound like you.
But is Roger Tuivasa-Sheck moving to the wing for the Warriors to accommodate Reece Walsh actually an audition for him to pick up one of the wing spots on the Blue squad, because he's probably not going to get the fullback position with Zahn Sullivan playing so well.
Wow.
I don't think he's ever going to be a fullback in Union, though, right?
Was he not?
Oh, I'm not sure. Like,
He'd be centre, wouldn't he?
Yeah, centre or wing. I think centre will be his best position in Union.
Start on the wing.
And but that's just my 2 cents. Well, obviously, there's also a certain B. Barrett coming back from Japan, who apparently is a fullback, and I'm not getting started on that. So.
Or first 5, eh?
Well, yeah, did he win 2 World Player of the Years playing in the 10 jersey? I don't recall.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on swiftly. Reds, they have to try and bounce back from whatever that was on Saturday night against the Chiefs up in Townsville. Weatherman Fisk, is it going to be hot, humid, sweaty?
Or super
hot? Yeah. This time of year, there's not much doing in Townsville. It's not what you'd call a holiday destination. But yeah, it'll just be pleasant enough. I don't think weather will have an impact on the match. It's not going to be overly hot, but it's not going to be wet or anything either. So,
what do you think the Chiefs and Warriors have got planned for Saturday night?
The Warriors hang around to get involved in one of these infamous Chiefs after parties.
I reckon they'll be straight out of there, but you never know. It
does look like a lovely spot they've got at Gosford, so I'd be heading straight back there if I could as well.
If anyone has infamous parties, it's the Landers.
Well, I don't know. The Chiefs are giving them a pretty good run for their money at the moment. Yeah, I'm not going to bring it up because I want to keep the relationship with New Zealand Rugby somewhat intact.
Right.
But, you all know how to use Google. You said the weather's not going to have an impact on the game, Fisky. Do you think the Reds are?
Yeah, I'm going to go against all the bones in my body and actually support an Aussie team this weekend. I actually think they can go really well here. I think this is a perfect game for them. The Chiefs have had back-to-back fairly impressive wins. They've had an impressive season so far, but they've done a lot of travelling. So Perth, back home, then back up to Townsville. Reds really need to bounce back here, and it's a fairly strong side, like I said. I don't think Chiefs are in that class of the Crusaders. We know that. I think this is a game this week where I feel there could be an upset. You heard it here first. This is the one.
Upset alert.
Yeah.
Are there you boys ringing the alarm as well for upset alert?
No, you've lost it. You've lost it, Fisky. The money's gone to your head.
To be fair, the Reds have been we know what they can do, and they haven't showed that at all in the first 2 games of this Trans-Tasman competition. They're going to click sooner or later, and more than likely back in Queensland. So I'm not going to back them, but I don't mind what Fisky's saying.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to back them. You got that part. I'm on the same page as you, I think. Because then where are they next weekend?
Blues.
Yeah. Oh, they're hosting the Blues, so they could win that one too. They could be one to target there. You did bring up the Spectre and Absolute, though. I'm going to bring it up again. I've brought it up every week, but I think is the total still a flat 2 or 1.5? Where are we going if you had to?
We narrowed it right then. Reese gave us 4.5 last week.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I was going to.
He went out. Out to 4.5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dreaming. And that's why he's not here today.
Yeah.
How much did we get on the unders?
I got a kebab. So, I think, it's got to the point now we can pinpoint 2 to 3 games where there could be an upset. So, it has to have it at flat 1 because there's only 2 to 3 games where it possibly could happen. And like we say, there's probably only one chance of 3 and one of those getting up. So, I'd have it at flat 1. I couldn't see 2. Like we're talking that Brumbies Hurricanes next week, maybe Reds Blues at a pinch next week, and this game we're talking about now, there's probably only 3 to 4.
Yeah, I'm with Fisky there.
I've been taking the under on any number all season. I would have liked to have a swing at 0 if the market was floating around, but especially you get later in the season, that week 5, maybe like you say Brumbies Highlanders, but all these New Zealand teams are going to be flying out the gates knowing they need to probably win by 40 to try coming out of 4 weeks when they've been
to make the final.
Playing Australian sides, whereas all the poor Australian teams are going to be beaten up for 4 weeks of playing. We know how physical the New Zealand teams all said Super Rugby Aotearoa was. They've essentially come through 4 weeks of that. I think the longer it goes on, there are some probably more friendly matchups this week and next week with the Hurricanes going to Canberra as well. But you don't want to leave it to the last week because in terms of motivation and everything, it's going to get.
If we get through the end of the season, into this Trans-Tasman season, and the Australian teams haven't won a game, what does that do for the Wallabies mindset when we get to international rugby?
Well, they've still got
must be cooked.
Dave Rennie's not coaching any of the Australian Super Rugby teams would be my only sort of saving grace there. But they did go right. Like they won a game and drew a game against the All Blacks last year. They weren't too far off.
Yeah, I went to that game and won. It was terrible. But
it's not great, right? It happened a couple of years ago as well. Was it 2018 that the New Zealand teams went through Super Rugby 25-0 against the? There was a great, I think it got to 40-match streak. Then a certain team based down in Dunedin messed it all up at the Sydney Football Stadium on a Saturday. Tavita Nabura kicked a guy in the face. I remember it got sent off in about the 14th minute. I'd lean closer to 0 than 1 if you asked me. That's just Do you want to say anything about this game that may or may not happen with your team taking on the Rebels before we make some bets, Carl?
I think I said it before. I think the Highlanders will win. It'll be a question of how many points they can muster after a tough week. I don't know. Anything else to add, lads? There's not.
I don't. The Rebels didn't seem to offer a lot other than trying to sort of play a Force-style spoiler role at the Cake Tin on Friday night. I don't know about you, Fisky. You backed the Rebels. Were you pretty happy with what you saw from them?
I fell over the line. Like, I guess they were never really covering the cane, so I wouldn't say it was always in hand. But
the line at the start of the week was 21.5. I don't think it'll be that big
in Sydney
once the markets reopen again.
Yeah, I think we'll get under that 20 mark.
If it's under 20, I'll probably take the minus, so I just can't see the.
The
Highlanders do have points in them as much as it might be.
The Rebels don't.
The Rebels,
no, they don't.
No,
they don't.
That was a statement, not a question, wasn't it, Paul?
They don't.
No. I think there's still guys like Naruki, and obviously maybe they'll give Aaron the week off, but they've got a pretty impressive backline. Josh Ioane to slot in if they want to give Mitch Hunt another game. So Highlanders could, if they are turned on for it, which who knows, right? Given the travel, it's the great variable, as we've been saying for 3 weeks.
Seems like a long time ago when they played the Force, and Sunday seems like a very long time away from us. It's a weird spot for this game, I think. Personally.
I was looking forward to a nice Sunday afternoon game in Queenstown. Thought it would
be nice to watch.
Yeah, no, it's a real shame. Shot Rebels. Can't believe we didn't kick them out.
Brubs.
We'll get started too much more of that. So I think it's time to make some bets, right? I'll just flick over to this little spreadsheet here, and Fisky will want me to mention that he has $538 up for the season so far. Great week last week. Rebels plus 25.5. Highlanders 1-12. Chiefs and Crusaders for your multi-anchor. Geordie Barrett couldn't get across the line, unfortunately, for your try score a bit, but everything else was coming up gold. Less said about the rest of our tips, the better. I think, yeah, other than multi-anchors, it was not a pretty week for.
I just want to give myself a little shout out. I didn't tip it on the podcast, but I tipped it everywhere else.
Well, that doesn't count then.
I know.
Doesn't count.
Mention it everywhere else
I
then.
need to get it off my chest. We had a couple of power plays got up in the Hurricanes game. Geordie Barrett to kick the first 3 conversions at $2 home. Julian Sevilla to score a try in both halves at $7 home.
Oh, where's the sheet now? What have we got here?
I didn't tip it on the podcast, so they weren't available, but I just want to say.
All I'm seeing here is Brumbies plus 8.5. Highlanders 11-20. Well, that was stiff. You're pretty close there.
Yeah, that was
very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got Jonah
2
Ricky
weeks-
home in about the 4th minute.
2 weeks in a row. Yeah, I got done by 1 point.
All right. Well, let's. We won't sort of dwell on that too long. Tune into the Friday Flutter tomorrow if you're listening to this beforehand to get all Carl's power plays for the Hurricanes Force game, or maybe we'll just hand out power plays for the entire 20 minutes.
Maybe.
Yeah. Fisky, you got to lead off the batting here since you're absolutely flying. What's your best bet of the week?
Yeah, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. My best bet of the week is the Reds plus 7.5. I think we've got $1.92 at the moment. I love it. Load up. I think they can win off the stick, but they'll cover if they don't win.
Fair enough. I can't say I'm on board with you, but I'm not really one to argue given the respective looks of our bank accounts at the moment. Paul, yours, please.
I'm going with the Force plus 21.5. I just get the feeling they're going to get under the skin of a number of these Hurricane players, and they're just going to get a wee bit frustrated. And if there's a wee bit of precipitation, they'll just push it a wee bit further towards the Force. So Force plus 21.5.
How good's weather watch in AP going to be? 6:40 tomorrow night. Carl, got a best bet for us?
I do, and it's a copy and paste job from last week. Brumbies plus 13.5 against the Blues. $1.80. I think, as I said, this is the best test for the Blues to see where they're at. I think the Brumbies will bounce back and keep it respectful. They could win, unlikely, but we'll keep it close.
You guys know the Crusaders game's included in this tipping comp, right? Like, you are allowed to tip them out. I'm just taking Crusaders minus, I think it's 32.5 at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They put about that on the Reds last week. The Waratahs are not any scores in play here. Triple digits are in play. Crusaders minus. Thank you very much.
Boom.
Yeah.
Love it.
Value bet, Paul. What in the sort of $1.40, $1.50 range have you got for a bit of value for us this week?
Wow.
That's
I've got a 3.
that's anchor territory, isn't it? $1.40.
Yeah.
You clearly weren't listening 2 weeks ago, Fisky.
Yeah,
Just
I
look up the spreadsheet a little bit.
Tip the $1.
The Mawadi special. Here we go.
Okay. So who's in second place at the moment?
Well, actually, I need to update
Hold on.
this.
Who's the only other guy
There you go.
who has a positive bank account?
Well, no one does, actually,
Thank
because
you.
you didn't get your tips in last week, so you lost $500.
I did not. How can you lose without placing a bet?
Forfeit.
Same way you lost all the info on your phone.
Fair income. Look, I'm sticking with the Force here. I really do think they are going to get right under the Hurricanes' nose. So I'm going to take the Force and the alternate point start Force plus 10.5 at 320.
Wow.
Here we go.
Very nice. I like that. Fisky?
Oh, this is brilliant. I'm doing the exact same as Paul, but I'm on the other side. So I think the Canes will make mincemeat of them up in Napier, and I like the alternate line as well, but I like the Canes minus 29.5. So Canes 30 plus at 275. Lock me in for that, please.
Don't mind that. Would love to see it. Very much so. How about you, Carl? What's your value for this week?
I've got the same game, the Hurricanes as well. I'm in the winning team of margin, the 10-point brackets, and I've got the Canes 21-30 at 375. So hopefully they win by 30 on the nose, Fisky, and we both get up.
Thank you, mate. Perfect.
I'm still scrolling just in the alternate points.
Doesn't go down far enough
for the Crusaders here. I've landed on Crusaders minus 49.5 at 4.15. I think they can drop half 100 on the Waratahs very easily. Getting more than $4 for that,
Yeah.
I will take all of that. Yeah. That's me. How about a multi-anchor for us, Paul? This is your speciality. I'll let you go first here.
So how far am I allowed to go?
You can tip out the
Whatever
Crusaders
you want,
head
mate.
if you want. That's an anchor.
No, how far can I go?
Anything is on the table. It's a trust system we operate on the Pick and Go podcast.
Circle of
you know
trust.
what you've done.
I'm going to go Crusaders minus 21.5 at $1.30. How's that?
Well, that's mine as well. So
Oh, nice.
Wow.
So I'm allowed it then?
yeah, of course, you're allowed anything you want.
Right.
You're the one who has to look at yourself in the mirror on Monday morning when you're making excuses about the spreadsheet. But that's perfectly acceptable.
I'll put it down.
I was going to, but then I
Yeah.
lost train of thought and I was being a
Yeah.
very poor host. Not that I'm not a very poor host the most of the time, but I'll fill them in later. How about you, Carl?
I've got Chiefs head to head, $1.36.
Nice one. Fisky?
Yeah, I'm back to basics. I'm just going to take Blues to win at $1.18 against the Brumbies.
Yeah, no, hard to argue with that. We will, just before we tip out try score bets, I will remind all the punters, I believe it is the late game on Saturday night, Reds versus Chiefs up
Reds,
in Townsville, is
Try time.
TRB Try Time Game of the Week. Paul, could you tell the punters what Try Time is?
Place a pre-match anytime try scorer bet of $30 or more and get a $5 bonus bet for every try scored in that match. And to be fair, there's been a few tries scored in just about every single match of this Trans-Tasman series. So that's on the Reds Chiefs game. Anytime try scorer market, put your $30 or more pre-match bet on and get a $5 bonus bet for every try scored.
Yeah,
Nice.
could be a fill-up up there if the Reds defend anything like they did against the Crusaders. Get involved for sure. Obviously, team's not out for the majority of games as we record, but just going to get a try scorer bet from any game across the week from each year. You can, if they're not named, you can flick me a message if you figure out how to work your Hangouts, Paul, and we'll amend the spreadsheet accordingly. But free reign any game. You got a try score for us?
Yep. Umunga Jensen looked very, very sharp for Wainui against North last weekend. And I think the step up against the Forces,
Step up?
it's not probably
Yeah.
not a step up.
I was going to say, how do you reckon Norths would go in the Super Rugby AU?
North's are a good side. North's
Yeah,
are
well, they
very
might
good.
have TJ running around for them next week as well if he can't get an injury exemption. So
Yep. So Umunga Jensen, $2.30. I think he's paying to be an anytime try scorer.
I believe he is. Carl, do you have a try score for us?
Same game, Nane Laumape at
love to see it.
$2. Anytime you get $2 for Nane to score a try,
That's
nice.
has got a lot of tries in Hurricanes dues over the last few years. Who's your try scorer, Fisky? I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, I think you do. Same match. And, I'll go with Geordie Barrett for a change. $1.91.
Hard to argue with that. He's
Same game, Pat.
no, well, I'm actually my first choice is Richie Mo'unga after the
Oh,
way he
At
played
$1.05.
last week. Yeah, I don't know. Like it won't be much for that. But if he's named, he's scoring, right? So that's what I'm going for. If not, I'll also be going with Peter Umunga Jensen because whenever he plays outside Nane Laumape, good things happen.
How's that for a wee pick and go same game multi?
Yeah,
All the tries.
Yeah.
So if Mo'unga plays, you try
scorer is Mo'unga.
Right.
If
If
they
he
give
do-
him the week off, it's
then
your
it's
boy
Umunga
Peter.
Jensen.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Can we? Yeah, that might be one to push out there. A same game multi for the Pick and Go podcast. So to score a try, Geordie Barrett, Lamapi, Umunga Jensen, and who was the fourth one?
Well, me and Paul are both
was
on
it.
it. But I'll chuck
Those
a one more
three.
in there as well.
Those
He's
three. Yeah,
scoring.
that'd be a handy little dividend. I could see it happening.
And the Canes to win by exactly 30. Are we putting that in too?
There we go.
Brilliant.
No, same game multi odds, unfortunately not available just yet, but I'll get that whipped up and get it out on social before tomorrow morning or something.
ASAP.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, parting words before we let the punters get on with their business for another week, chaps?
Oh, I think it's worth calling out that I know it's not an All Black podcast, but this year of the All Blacks 10 matches, 9 will be at home. So I think that's a great coup for New Zealand, and we'll get to see a lot of them this year.
Might be an All Blacks podcast when the Super Rugby season stops.
That's right. Yeah.
Probably give them. Yeah, no, it was very exciting seeing a lot of the rugby championship listed to play in New Zealand. I can't wait. Hopefully it all goes according to plan. It should be a great year of international rugby.
As long as the Rebels either stay away or stay here, we should be fine.
Don't think the Rebels will be too much concerned once the All Blacks roll around. But yeah, cheers for shouting that out, Fisky. Thanks for joining us as always. Hopefully we'll have you back on next week to crow about some more winnings. Got another gift for it. Make some noise so we can get it on screen.
No, that'll do. We'll just
You're not falling for that trap again. Cheers for joining us, lads. Been a good chat. Thanks for joining us, punters. Have a good week. Enjoy the rugby, and we'll be back next week to talk about some more Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. Cheerio.